Knudsen. I'm running for Congress here on Maryland's Eastern Shore. One of the biggest concerns and issues that we have is our traffic, our education, our health care, and our civil rights that are being taken away by our representative that is currently in office, and I seek to change that as an LGBT candidate. Well, good evening, everybody. I am Congressional Candidate Mia Mason. I am here to let you know that we are here with Nick Knudsen, and we are going to be kicking off with him here in just a moment as we begin with our coalition tonight at 8 p.m. sharp. We're about to begin. Thank you for supporting us, coming along for the journey. We got just a couple days to our primaries and others.
The broadcast is now starting.
So let's get into it.
In listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the No Democrat Left Behind virtual town hall. We are a coalition of congressional candidates running in deep red, mostly rural districts, and we are very excited to have the executive director of DemCast, Nick Knudsen, hosting tonight. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Nick.
All right, thank you very much. Very excited to be here. And welcome to all our viewers out there across the country. Thank you so much for joining this conversation with us tonight. We're going to be talking to 10 Democrats who are part of the No Dem Left Behind coalition, which is founded on the premise that we compete everywhere. These candidates hail from largely rural districts that often get ignored, but whose constituents probably stand to gain the most from more progressive policies implemented at the federal level. So I want to thank all of you for running for Congress, which is a really big deal, and aiming to represent your districts and hopefully your future constituents. So congratulations just on taking that lead. As Leah said, I'm Nick Knudsen. I'm the executive director of DemCast. We're a 501c4 nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to bolstering the blue policy and electoral victories across the United States. And we do that by curating, creating, and disseminating grassroots digital media content. And if you go to DemCastUSA.com and go to Get Involved, we would love to have you join our work. So we don't have a ton of time today, and I want to make sure that you guys get to talk as much as possible. Why don't we go ahead and have you guys just introduce yourselves, maybe say, and I'll just say first, so the way that this is going to go, we're going to talk to 5 of the No Dem Left Behind candidates first, and then we'll take a short break to just do a transition, and then we'll talk to the others during the second half hour. Love to have you guys just go around and introduce yourselves, what state and district you're from, and then share something that you love about your district that made you want to run. And I'll go to Natalie.
Hi Nick, hi everyone. Thank you so much for hosting us tonight. My name is Natalie Klein, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in West Virginia's 1st Congressional District. And it's really hard to pinpoint just one thing that I love about this district, but I know it's gonna just sound so typical. Everybody always says the people, but in my case it really is. And that's what brought us back to West Virginia. We were West Virginia natives. We moved away for a little bit, but we really came back here because we wanted to be with the people of West Virginia and raise our son in the same type of environment with the same type of culture that we were raised with. So thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Thanks, Nick. My name is Michael Moscato, and I'm a candidate for United States Congress here in Arizona's 8th Congressional District, which spans parts of Phoenix, Peoria, Surprise, Glendale, Arizona, mostly known as the Northwest Valley of Arizona. And I'm born and raised in this district, and I'm running against an incumbent who's been my representative for 12 years of my entire life, so a third of my life. And I love this town because it's where I'm from, and where you come from means something to me. And there's a lot going on, and I'm here to step up to do something about it. And was competitive in 2018, and I'm here to finish the job. And I can do that with the support of people like DemCast, No Den Left Behind, and the great citizens of this country who want people to represent the people of the districts and not the political parties. So thanks for having me on, and I look forward to answering tonight's questions.
Great, thanks. How about we go over to Alan?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Ellison, running for the United States House of Representatives to represent Florida's 17th Congressional District. This district is one of the largest congressional districts in the country, actually the largest in the state of Florida. It covers 9 counties inside of Central Florida. And the thing I love about my district is the fact that it's my home. You know, I was raised in one county. I was born in another county inside of the district, college inside of another county. And my family and friends were, you know, they're all here. And so most of the memories that I have growing up, all the positive memories are here. I met my beautiful wife, Dr. Samantha Ellison, at this particular district, and I had my beautiful daughter in this district. So all of the things that I cherish and hold dear are here. And the reason that I'm running is because I want to make sure that each and every person that has been left out, overlooked, and forgotten about actually have a true representative in Congress that will represent their interests. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alan. How about Jamie?
Hi, so my name is Jamie Cheek, and I'm running in Utah's 1st Congressional District. And the thing that I love the most about CD1 is the hope and the beauty that exists here. We have 2 four-year institutions, one in Ogden, one in Logan. And that's where Utahns get to kind of gaze their way forward and kind of access their American dream. And so it's great that that exists here. And the beauty is that we have so many beautiful public lands and mountains that we get to see every single day. And so that's why I decided to run.
Thank you. That's great. All right, last but not least, Adam.
I'm Adam Christensen. I am running in Florida for the 3rd District, which is basically Gainesville, Ocala, all the way up to the Jacksonville suburbs. I think the thing I like and really love the most about where we live, and just it's like Natalie said, it's the people. I have never met so many people in my life who cared so much about their community, about the people that are here, and just they want a better life, and they want to make sure that their kids can have a better life. And you know, for me, that's what I love about it, and it's empowering, and it's been a lot of fun.
All right, thanks. I think that's a helpful intro to folks who aren't familiar with you guys yet. So let's dive into some questions so that our viewers can hear more about your perspectives. We'll try to keep responses in the 60 to 90 second-ish range just so that we can hit a few topics before the half hour's up. First, I know that during your last town hall, you discussed the horrifying murder of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, who was hunted and murdered by a small group of white men for simply being a black man out on a jog. Since that conversation, we've had more events that have struck a nerve in America. This week, Christian Cooper was walking through Central Park, and when he asked a passerby, Amy Cooper, to put her dog on a leash, and she became seemingly deathly afraid and called the police about the, quote, African-American man who was threatening her. Of course, he had his phone on, so this went viral. And I know most people have seen it at this point. And now America's grieving and enraged over the murder of George Floyd at the hands of 4 police officers in Minneapolis this week. And where there have since been demonstrations with police firing tear gas at protesters. So these are not unique, uncommon events. These were just the events that were recently caught on camera. Adam, how, and I'll ask this question of all of you, how have you engaged in your district to address the culture of violence toward African Americans? And what have you learned from the people in your district on this issue?
Are you speaking to Adam or Alan?
sorry. I said Adam. You're on mute. Sorry, buddy. Oh, so I still can't hear you. Why don't we go over Alan? Why don't you take it since you asked, and maybe we can get his mic fixed.
You know, as a leader in my community, this issue comes up quite often, and people come to me quite often about what to do. And so, you know, when these types of things happen and that they're filmed and they're shown all over the television, all over social media, it has a way of bringing out the worst in people. It has a way of stirring up mixed emotions and allowing the rage and anger to just, you know, become pervasive feeling throughout the nation. One of the things that I've always tried to do is take that energy and focus it into something positive. So the last time I was faced with this scenario in my community, in the churches, people were talking about it, I basically tried to get them to understand that the best way to fix this problem is to unite, mobilize, and begin to engage in political action. And what that political action looks like is inspiring young people of color to consider running for office so that they can be lawmakers and have a seat at the table to write laws that make a positive impact in our communities. We try to encourage individuals to consider becoming law enforcement officers so that we can level the playing field in terms of making sure that there is adequate and equal justice that is administered on our streets. Making sure that people decide to go to law school. I actually have a program, which is the Young Leaders Initiative. We try to ignite young people to go into those fields, and we link them up with mentors who are actually in these fields so that they can be a part of the solution and have a voice. And so that's one of the things we're doing.
Thank you very much. Adam, can we give it a try here?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Can you hear me?
There we go.
I think people are just pissed. I mean, that's at this point, I mean, every single time that we go on social media, we're seeing the same thing over and over again. Same video. I mean, it's a different name, it's a different person. And for most people that I talk to, they're like, this shouldn't keep happening. It can't keep happening. And we don't understand why. And for a lot of people, I think it's white shock, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot of just thinking, you know, after the first person who said, I can't breathe, we would have fixed it. Or after the first young kid who's 12 years old is playing with a BB gun and gets shot down on a playground, it should have been fixed. Or all the way back to Rodney King, or even before that. And we know what needs to be done. And I feel like at this point, so many people that I've talked to, they just think that at this point, we have to start treating people like they're human. And we have to believe that they are human. And for a lot of people right now, it's hard for them as they see these videos and they don't know what to do because they feel helpless, because they feel like, you know, after Eric Gardner, you would think that the police officer, you know, would have been convicted. And so a lot of people right now, they feel helpless and they want to do something, but they don't know what to do. And so the first thing, you know, I think there's two things that we have to do, and we've known what to do for a very long time. One is we have to just start treating people like they are people with empathy and compassion and actually, you know, be able to connect with people. And the second thing is we have to get rid of these institutions which perpetuate this idea that really almost degrade people in who they are. Cash bail bond, private prisons, all of these different things that we have set up since the end of the Civil War and even before it, that perpetuate this idea that if you're white, you can do whatever you want and nobody's going to come after you and nobody's going to punish you for it. And for me, everyone that I talk to, it doesn't matter who you are at this point, they're just pissed and they want to do something. And I think that that's really where we're at right now, because like you said, the last time that we did this, we were talking about somebody else that this had happened to. And I don't know, I don't know when never again, or like we say those things, like we said it after Parkland, same thing. We said, this can't happen again. We said it after Eric Garner, this can't happen again. And I want to know when it is that the people that are in charge that we have put there are actually going to fix it, are actually going to make sure it never happens again. And I think that's how most people feel right now. I might be wrong, but I think that's how they feel.
Thanks. Let's go to Jamie. Jamie, how are you engaging with your district on this, and what are people saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, Black Lives Matter, and it's not just a hashtag. It's the way that we treat others, and it's the way that we look at current institutions. And so this is something that's very near and dear to me. I've been working within these teams for a while now. In CD1, actually in Ogden, we're having a Take a Knee demonstration on Saturday from 2 to 4. And I'm going to be there and be a part of that conversation, because I think that the way that we make change is that we make this problem important to everyone. And I know it's Will Smith, but he said, racism isn't new or getting worse, it's just getting filmed. And so it's that these atrocities are finally being brought to the social conscious, and they're not getting better, they're not getting changed. So we have to do something different. We can't just keep hoping, we can't just keep getting angry. We need to do something. And so being aware of these problems and taking those issues to Congress, even at the local level, getting engaged in your city councils, getting engaged with your local police forces, and forcing them to change the way that they look at this violence is important. Sure, we had people shouting for them to get off of it, but they didn't do anything, and that's the problem.
Thank you. Natalie.
Nick, I think you said it best when you said that it's not uncommon. Sadly, racism has existed in this country since our onset. We're really seeing it up close and personal in ways that we have not seen it historically, with how quickly self-image can go viral. I don't know that we're seeing more instances, or if we're just now seeing these atrocities that we have been aware, or unaware of before, because traditional media formats didn't have this kind of virality that we have now. Alan said it really nicely when he said that we have to continue to engage and inspire our communities. We need to lead by example. It's absolutely unacceptable for any administration or government representative to condone, encourage any sort of racism. And I feel that this is exactly what we are seeing from our president, when our office holders have a responsibility to lead by example, diffuse these situations, work to keep us safe, and strive to improve our quality of life for all of their constituents. And I have yet to see that from this administration. All I can say is, as a candidate for public office and a human being, I will never act to escalate or incite this type of behavior. I will always condone it. And I will always strive to make my community one that's accepting, understanding, and loving, whether I'm a candidate, an office holder, or an average citizen.
Thanks. And Michael?
Thanks for the question, Nick. And I just want to touch on something that Adam mentioned. We need to realize, and we need to have a look in the mirror here and understand that our elected officials aren't going to fix the problem. George couldn't wait for Congress to act while that officer was on his neck. I mean, it's 2020, and we just watched an American citizen murdered in broad daylight. If that doesn't outrage you as an individual, I don't know what will. But it starts at the top, like everything else. I grew up in an area that is predominantly white, and I'm not going to act like I know about the strife of what an African American man my age goes through, because I don't. But what I can tell you is, I'm not surprised at what's happening, because we've seen that even though we defeated the Nazis in the 1940s, that they came right back over here with us. And they've been here with us. And what I'm seeing now, and God bless the 17-year-old girl who videotaped the instance, because the technology is playing an important role, which is holding people accountable for their actions. But as I alluded to on social media today, George needed somebody to do something, anything, other than stand there and watch, anything. I understand that there's risk involved, and I understand people who commented about the fear and what could potentially happen. I get that, and it's unfortunate that that even has to be that way. But he needed one American, one of us to step up. Because I don't want a video of the next George dying on YouTube. I want to know that the video doesn't exist because somebody stopped the tyrants. Let's make it clear. These people are tyrants. And we are not going to defeat tyranny with pacifism and being submissive to those acts in broad daylight. And I'm not condoning attacking police officers. Support our law enforcement. But the idea that we're just running into a few bad apples, it's a tired act. Law enforcement agencies all over the country need to do a better job, but I can tell you this, Nick. That guy didn't just go from being a good cop to murdering an American citizen in broad daylight. There were people, many people along the way. The signs were there, went unchecked. Went unchecked in the law enforcement agencies, just like the tyranny in the government is going unchecked by members of Congress. So we cannot wait. It's up to us. It's up to us as citizens. And I saw Don Lemon just before I came on here tonight. What I would ask is that we stop looking at each other as Republicans and independents and Democrats and black and white and Hispanic. We're Americans. That was our brother who died for all of us to see. He needed us to do something. Something. We can't live our lives through a 6-inch screen behind a phone. We don't need 30 people recording something or 30 people saying you're hurting him. We need someone to save ourselves. We're the only ones that are going to save this country, and we're going to save the next George. We need to do something. So to your question, what am I going to do with the community? I'm reaching out, trying to figure out what can we do with law enforcement. What can we do as communities where if that happens, when it happens again, because let's be real here, it's going to happen again. What do we do in that moment? Because standing by and watching George die is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. He deserved better than that. And we can do better than that.
I appreciate all those responses. Thank you, Michael. I think, what I hear from all of you is, this is a very complex issue. It's not something that we can solve with the signature from a pen. It's something that's going to require all of us, and it's going to require leaders who are willing to stand up and really, engage in their communities and try and tackle it. And I appreciate all of your responses. I wanted to make the space to have that conversation. We did chew up a good chunk of our time. I want to pivot to a different topic here. So Trump has reached a new milestone of erratic behavior. He's out of control. Republicans aren't doing anything. He's taking aim at science and the welfare of the American people with his terrible stance on wearing masks and turning public safety into a culture war. So we want to hear about how him and his behavior and sort of the fallout from his behavior is affecting your community. So Natalie, Trump's last month of February has resulted in thousands more American deaths than there needed to be. This is epic mismanagement. Are his failures seeping through to people who have been historically staunch Trump supporters in your district? How are folks reacting to his assaults on science, his disregarding of public safety measures?
In general, I feel like we're seeing a lot of people who are trying to do the responsible thing, or the most responsible thing that they can, and wear their mask. West Virginia is one of the most at-risk states in the nation due to the high number of folks who have pre-existing conditions such as diabetes, COPD, black lung, and other respiratory illnesses. Many of these people understand the risks and are wearing masks when they go out in public. The problem that we're seeing is that as we are reopening our state, other folks think that it's safe to go back out without wearing a mask and to go back to normal behaviors. And a lot of these people may not have pre-existing conditions and they may be asymptomatic. And they're going out without their mask and they just don't understand that they could potentially be putting their loved ones' lives at risk by not wearing a mask, or someone else's life at risk, and are continuing to spread this disease even though they may not be showing symptoms. The more that this administration minimizes the severity of this disease and stigmatizes wearing masks, the more we're going to see these asymptomatic carriers spreading it through our communities. And a lot of West Virginians have been very reasonable about this and are wearing their masks. But you have people who are taking their lead from our country's leader. And I never thought I would live in a world where that information is contradicting that of our scientific community and healthcare leaders. So I think that we need to be making efforts to combat the stigma of wearing masks in order to continue to protect those who need additional protections from asymptomatic carriers.
Agreed. Thank you for that. Alan, what about in your district? How are Trump's failures in leadership sort of being taken in, and how are people being affected?
Well, I'll tell you, right now we're over 100,000 deaths in the United States, and Florida has a very large portion of those deaths. And so for that, I just want to say that my heart goes out to all of the families that are having to deal with loved ones that have been lost. So that's number one. But number two, I think that we are starting to see a shift in support for the president. A lot of us already knew that the president was always about what is working for him, his campaign, his total self, right? So a lot of supporters that were for him that are now not for him, they have come to see what we already understand. That is, everything that he does, he's doing it through the lens of how does it boost his ratings. He does it through the lens of how does it impact his campaign and his world. When people are born into this world, some people are born and they draw a circle around themselves. That's the kind of person that Trump is. And then you have other people who are born into this world and they draw a circle around themselves and their families. And that's very notable. Very few people come into this world and they draw a circle around themselves and the nation. Even fewer draw a circle around themselves and humanity. People are starting to realize that the kind of individual he is that, he was born into this world and he only drew a circle around himself. They are starting to see that he has no loyalty to anyone, but he demands loyalty from everyone. And they are starting to see that his own ignorance is causing the death tolls to go up. They are starting to see that his ignorance is combative and in conflict with the professionals in the science community, the healthcare community. I mean, people are starting to see him for what he is, and it's not much. And so for that, I have seen a great deal of Trump supporters decide that they are not going to do it anymore. They are starting to support Democratic candidates in the state of Florida for the first time since the elections started. We have Joe Biden, who is actually leading in the polls, and in some places by double digits. So I think it's unfortunate that it's taken people to lose their lives so that other people can see. But that is exactly what's going on. Seeing him for what he really is.
Thanks. Yeah, I just heard yesterday that Florida has fielded Democratic candidates for every single state legislative and Senate district for the first time.
Yes.
So that's speaking to the sort of the fury and bewilderment that you're talking about. Adam, speaking of, how's your district responding and sort of processing the botched response from the Trump administration?
I think what we have to understand is I'm a scientist, but talking to people about science is not going to sway their vote in November. Talking about whether or not we could have done better or not, but it's not going to. People are desperate. They could barely afford their rent 2 months ago. 40% of people had $400. I mean, right now, most people don't think that either party cares whether or not they live or die. They don't think that most people, are going to get help. That was pre-pandemic. Now we're 2 months in. And the way that you win over people in these rural districts is you don't focus it on golf or on Twitter. You focus it on whether or not you're going to make sure that they can live and actually have a decent life. That's it. That's what you focus on. And most people, I mean, it's not a backlash against science. It's a backlash against the fact that they are desperate and they don't have any other choice. And so they want to reopen because they don't have money. They want to reopen because otherwise they're going to be homeless. They want to reopen because otherwise they're just not going to make it. And their kids are going to go hungry. And so I understand, and I get it. But the way we actually fix those things is making sure that people are okay and they have enough money to get through. We don't just start giving it to giant companies. We don't give it to banks. We give it to people. And we make sure they can make their mortgage and make their rent and they're going to be okay. That's what I'm seeing. And the first politicians, the first party that actually put people first, that's who's going to win in November. Everything else, at the end of the day, it's not going to sway votes. And that's what I'm hearing from everyone here, conservative, Democrat, it doesn't matter. You take care of people first and you make sure they have shoes on their feet, food in their stomachs, they'll go with you. And they will put you in office and they will change things. But if you don't do that, if you put anything else first, it's game over.
Thank you. Jamie, how about you?
Yeah, so Utah, the red of the red, I am in one of the top 5 most red districts in the country. Just did a poll, and Joe Biden is within 3 points of the president, which is shocking. We have one blue House of Representatives, Representative Ben McAdams. CD2 is on the precipice of flipping. Kel Winston is an amazing candidate, and Chris Stewart has done enough to kind of ruin his own reputation. And nobody here in Utah really believes the things that the president is saying. They don't fall in line with what he's saying. We have a real strong independent state here. So yeah, I think that he's not helping Republicans in this super majority that we have. But he's scared because he just tweeted about Ogden, Utah, like 10 minutes ago. So he's worried about his votes here in Utah, and he's going about it the wrong way. So I think that if we stay on message, we talk about the things that matter, that blue candidates care about, the average American, and we're here to help. I think that we can make a big difference in 2020.
All right, thanks. And Michael, last but not least, any thoughts on this?
I want to make myself really clear. Donald Trump is a bully. Okay? And for the last 4 years, I've watched as our party has taken shot after shot. I want to encourage all of my Democratic candidates and the Democratic representatives out there that we need to understand one simple thing about this man. And I'm starting to see it with projects like the Lincoln Project and other groups. These people don't care about the law. They control the law. These people don't care about the rules. They're changing the rules to benefit themselves. These people hold the power and they hold the money. They just doled out $6.2 trillion, and most of that didn't go to small businesses or the working people of America. So they don't care about you. And take my district as a great example. I'm in the county that gave Donald Trump the most votes of any county in the entire country in 2016. Congratulations to my hometown. There's a lot of people right now that are really thinking twice about that decision. Polling has shown that not only is Joe Biden losing here in this county and in this district, but Mark Kelly is crushing Martha McSally in the polls in double digits. My opponent, Debbie Lesko, is right on those coattails, and from everything we're seeing, she's following the same suit. People want to know how they put food on the table and provide the roof over their head. It's pretty easy here in Arizona. 56 years in a row. Republican majority legislature. 36 years I've been alive. I haven't had a Democratic representative. My opponent's been in office. If you're looking for change and you want to make your life better, they've had their chance. They have shown you what they're going to give you, and it looks like what we're seeing now: 100,000 people dead, an economy that works for a select few people, and 40 million people out of jobs. That's what they're giving you. They have no solution to help, even care to address anything regarding gun violence or education or the environment or infrastructure, anything. So what does our future look like in the hands of 4 more years of Donald Trump and 2 more years of our opponents here? Doesn't look good. And my district, with seniors who rely on being able to vote by mail, and we've got a president trying to make sure that we don't vote by mail in a pandemic, that's his voting base. That's my opponent's voting base. They would rather have us risk their lives to ensure that they get reelected than to give the voice to the American people, because they know what the voice of the American people is going to do. It's going to kick them out of office. I was raised by 2 blue-collar public school teachers that taught me that when you're getting bullied, because I got bullied back when I had braces and weird haircuts and all that stuff, go to the teacher, you let them know, you make sure you play by the rules, and then at a certain point you have to step up to that bully and handle your business. And it's time for all of us here in this country to step up and call this man out for what he is. He's a bully, and we need to put him in his place. And the way that we're going to do that is by voting him out of office and all of his enablers out of office in November. So be ready, America. There's plenty of people here who want to represent you, your families, and we may have a different color flag attached to our party, but our goal is to represent everyone in our district. And that should be the job of any representative, regardless of whether or not they're Republican or Democrat. It's to represent everyone. And that's what I'm looking to do.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I would love to do. I had one more question. We're over on time already. I would love to just get 20 seconds from each of you on one final thing that sort of peels off of what the last few folks were talking about. So let's get you into office in the 117th Congress. We're going to have the opportunity to push through legislation that is going to have a chance to actually help the American people. More recovery funds, more stimulus funds. We're headed. We have depression era unemployment right now. That's not going to just resolve itself in the next 6 months. So when you get in there in January, tell me one thing that you're going to fight for right out of the gate that is going to help the people in your district, and I'm speaking legislatively. And let's go, Michael. You can kick it off. And
Well, first of all, day one, let's work to reverse Citizens United. That's a huge part of a lot of the collective problems that we have. But we're going to get there, and we got to fight for healthcare. Healthcare is the top priority of my district and just about every district in this country. Got to make it more affordable, more accessible, and on top of driving prices down, we've got to make sure that we have true coverage. We need to talk about coverage, not just insurance. They're two different things. I'm going to go day one fighting for all of us. Our hometown and our country are always worth fighting for.
all right, thank you, Alan. You're on. I think you're mute.
Can you hear me? On day one, the thing that I want to put forward for our country, for our district, is to make sure that we have a universal healthcare system that actually works, one that is affordable, that we can pay for without having to cut funding from other programs or raise taxes. We're going to need an economic recovery plan to fix all of the jobs that have been lost forever, people that have been out of work. So we're going to need to do some things very quickly because that's going to be, 7-8 months from now. So we're going to have people going to be in a very tough situation. So we're going to have to work on an economic recovery plan, and people are going to need access to universal health care. It may not happen in terms of getting the votes necessary, but it's something that I want to help push forward and make sure that there is actual language that can get people on board. The problem we have in this country is being able to write policy that doesn't get us bogged down by the political, philosophical, ideological debate. We need policies that can cut through that and help improve the quality of life for all citizens, not just the special ones and not just the special interest groups. And so that's what I'm pushing forward to, and I'm looking to help put this country on a new path forward.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go to Natalie. Thank you very much. Let's go to Natalie.
For me, it's going to also be healthcare. In West Virginia right now, not only can we not afford healthcare, but we can't access it. In the last 6 months, this district alone has seen 4 medical facilities close. One of them was the only hospital in all of Marion County. It closed as soon as we had our first coronavirus patient hit West Virginia, closing earlier than scheduled to close because, as we had seen, the coronavirus is not profitable to hospitals. There has been no proposed legislation from the incumbent on how to avoid this type of corporate behavior in the future and actually ensure that we will continue to have access to healthcare. So I will be fighting to make sure that, number one, we can afford it, and number two, that legislation is in place to prevent the same thing from happening again so that we can continue to actually get to a medical facility.
Thank you. Adam.
Our problems are too big to just do one thing as soon as we get in there. And we've seen that, if one person doesn't have health care, then the rest of us, everyone else who does have health care is at risk. I mean, if one person doesn't have health care in a pandemic, everyone's at risk. We have to put a moratorium on mortgages, on rent. We have to make sure everybody has at least $2,000 as the basic income every single month so that they can survive. We need a federal jobs guarantee because we have 25% unemployment. I mean, these are Depression-era tactics, but that's where we're at right now. So the scale of what we have to do has to match how horrible the scale of what has happened to us so far. That's what we have to do. There's nothing less.
All right, thank you. And Jamie, last but not least.
So definitely healthcare, that's my number one concern. But since everybody's kind of shown how important it is, education I think is the second most important. We've had millions of people lose their jobs, and these are jobs that are lost forever. They're not coming back. So we need to be able to move these individuals forward and provide them education that is accessible, that is affordable, so that they can get these new skills and get back into the economy. These are better jobs than some of the jobs that they've lost. And so the only way that we do that is by making education more affordable for the average American. And as I said earlier, I have 2 4-year institutions. I have a bunch of trade schools in my district. That needs to be accessible for everyone. And we need to get out of student loan debt. We need to move forward and give people the ability to access the economy.
All right, that's a great way to close. Workforce development is a passion of mine, so I appreciate that. I think we're out of time, guys. I would love to just keep chatting with you. I think we got to rotate through to the next 5, but I just wanted to thank you so much and wish you all the best of luck.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. And if our viewers will just bear with us for a minute.
I'm Mia Mason. I'm running for Congress here on Maryland's Eastern Shore. One of the biggest concerns and issues that we have is our traffic, our education, our health care, and our civil rights that are being taken away by our representative that is currently in office. And I seek to change that as an LGBT candidate.
Faster than I imagined it would be. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to skip the sort of the intro that I did at the very beginning about sort of what this is and what the format is. But you know, just as a one sentence reminder for folks or for people who are joining midstream, this is a candidate forum and town hall with 5 Democrats who are running as a part of the No Dem Left Behind coalition. And I'm Nick Knudsen from DemCast. I'm excited to jump into some questions with folks. But first, I want to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves. Just say your name, your district and state, and something that you love about your district that has prompted you to run for Congress. And let's start with Cindy.
Hi there. Thanks, Nick, for hosting us this evening. My name is Dr. Cindy Vanier. I'm a candidate for Congress here in Florida Congressional District 19. That's Fort Myers and Naples area, coastal Southwest Florida. I'm a mom and small business owner, and I'm fighting for our water, our health, and our community. And I think what I love best about our community is not only the beautiful environment, but the people who live here, who genuinely love our environment, our community, and the people who are fighting for it. And that is what is actually compelling me to run. There's a lot of people here who do not have a voice, and they deserve somebody who's going to work for them.
Thank you very much. Devin.
Hi, my name is Devin Pandy. I am running for United States House of Representatives to represent Georgia's 9th Congressional District. I am an immigrant myself. I immigrated here when I was an infant, my parents. And if it weren't for my mother coming over here legally, then the rest of us would have been deported, or I would be a DACA recipient right now. So I can definitely feel the angst that comes along with that. And a lot like me, there are people out there who are DACA recipients who have been here their whole lives that don't have that naturalization certificate that I have, and so they're Americans. They've lived here their whole lives. They've grown up here, but they're not seen that way by the government. I am a 21-year veteran of the United States Army. 5 deployments, 4 regions, Panama, Kuwait, Iraq twice, and Afghanistan. And I am just really proud to be serving my country once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your service. How about Mia?
Well, thank you for having us. My district is pretty gerrymandered. And one of the things that I really love about it is the environment, the people, the rural Dems out there that are concerned about their legacy. I grew up with family that does that all the time, but I'm running for Maryland District 1 because I believe in the people, and listening to them is how we work for them and amplify their voice and give them results in the future.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, first off, Nick, thanks for having us on. I'm Tom Palswitz. I'm running in Wisconsin's 5th Congressional District. I was in the Navy. I was on the submarine, and I got to live around the country and travel around the world. And I came back to live in Wisconsin after the Navy for one simple reason. Wisconsin has been historically Wisconsin nice, and it's a great place to raise a family. And one of the reasons I'm running is we've had an erosion in the American dream. And my children today don't have the same opportunities that I had. I graduated from college, and I think that's something that we really need to change.
Agreed. Thank you. And FYI, I'm a Eau Claire native. I was born in Eau Claire, so I'm a Wisconsinite.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, Rob.
Hey, good evening, Nick. Thanks for the intro. My name is Rob Anderson. I'm running in Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District, which is Southwest Louisiana. And I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to represent my district, which is full of a diverse group of working class people who love good food.
Food is great. I'm glad to hear it. All right. Especially down there. Okay, so let's jump in here, and I want to start where we started with the last group, because it's a topic that's right at the forefront of the country's conversation today. We are, as a nation, again grieving over a murder, a black man. This time at the hands of police, George Floyd in Minneapolis, and the country is roiling over it. As I said previously, these are not uncommon events. With George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, these were just the ones that were most recently caught on tape. Cindy, I'll start with you. So how are you engaging your district, the folks in your district, on the issue of violence toward African Americans? What are you learning, and what do you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this question. Before I jump into what's going on in my district, because this is something we actually talked about before, so I had some images brought up. So this is our most recent loss, George Floyd. But last time we were talking about Auburn. Prior to that, in Florida, we also had Trayvon Martin. But history against black men in this country goes, violence against black men in this country goes much further back than that, all the way back to even Emmett Till, and particularly the leveraging of white female fragility at the hands of violence against black men has been a problem, because that's where we get our Central Park Karen issues, right? Where white women can use their power of fragility against and end the life of somebody else because of racism and because of fear. Now, I know in my district, we haven't had a lot of in-person conversations about this recently, obviously because of the coronavirus, but I have been somebody who's worked in this district quite extensively, uncover racial bias and equity gaps within our workforce and education system. So I have engaged in conversations around our community. I actually led a series of conversations with students. More than 100 students across our region came together to discuss the issues of equity gap. So for instance, why is it that white students in Southwest Florida are graduating 83% of the time, where only 65% of black students are graduating on time? We went and asked them these questions. What do you think it is? What they told us was that it was bias and racism in the classroom that they feel on an everyday basis. Students being discriminated against, black students being suspended and disciplined more frequently and harshly than white students. And it was just such an eye-opening thing for me that I really became a champion for this issue. I pushed it. People didn't want to talk about it. People would rather talk about poverty than race. I actually was told in one of my reports to change. I had originally disaggregated the data to demonstrate these equity gaps with Latinx and African Americans having having equity gaps, and I was told to go back and change it because poverty was easier to talk about. And I continue to push the dialogue, and I am proud to say that we are actually engaging in some conversations here in Southwest Florida around latent bias. A lot of training has been going into nonprofit in particular, as well as the government sector, and I think that's really important. And I will add on to that, one of the things that I talk about in my class with students at Gulf Coast University is there's a need to be reflective on what you are and what you have and how you are seen and viewed toward vis-a-vis other people, but also respect where other people are. So we are one human family, but we're different, and we can respect each other's differences. And I think that is a really important concept for us to come in. And I also think it's really important for white people themselves to start to have serious conversations about systemic racism in our communities and what they are willing to do about it. And for me, it always starts with that reflective piece. Am I actually acting and holding bias? And am I thinking about that? And is that a correct assumption? And to have this internal dialogue as well, to make sure that we have no more Central Park Karens.
All right, thank you. Devin, how about you? What's the conversation in Georgia? I know Ahmaud Arbery is from Georgia, so I'm sure that there's been particularly solemn conversations and a lot of anger. I think you're muted.
Bye now. All right, great. Yes, so yes, there is a lot of anger, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. Yes, this is not new. It's not new to me. It's not new to people who look like me. It's not new to people who grew up like me in the places that I grew up as a young kid. It's not new to us. We saw it outside our window. Now everyone is just seeing it through a different frame because we have cell phones with cameras. But it's not new to us. I'm going to get straight into what I believe needs to happen. Yes, we would like people to change their minds, change their hearts, and view people who look like me as human beings, as people who simply want to live their life, raise their children, go to work, put their food, go to the park in peace. But every time this happens, say, okay, when is this going to stop? And then we forget about it until the next time it happens. But here's what I think needs to happen. Making a false report or calling in a false report should be viewed not as a misdemeanor, but as a felony when it is based on race. The prone position, which I believe is already against some ordinances, should definitely be against the law, at least once the subject has been subdued. Police officers who violate these laws should be prosecuted. People who violate these laws should be prosecuted. Now, the police officers who violate these laws and it results in someone's death, they need to be immediately let go without pay, arrested, and investigated. They have now become criminal suspects themselves. That is one of the problems that we face right now, where we do not treat our police officers as criminals after they have committed a crime. We also need to pay attention to the way that, well, like I was saying before, we want to be seen as human beings. We are human beings. Even back when we were only regarded as 3/5 of a person, we were human beings. That's what we want to be seen as. That's what we want to be recognized as and respected as. Black people in Minneapolis showed up to protest, and they were met with tear gas and rubber bullets. White people in Michigan were met with none of that. And they did it 3 times. 3 times. I've heard people saying that someone should have done something in the case of the young man in Minneapolis. Sorry, I'm getting a little. But some people say that the people that were standing around should have done something. It is easy to say that when you didn't grow up like me and when you don't look like me. We are raised fear the police. There is a reason why NWA existed. There is a reason why Tupac was so militant. So, if the police are so willing to kill somebody in cuffs, in the prone position, who poses them no threat, what are they going to do to us when we try to step in and do something? There is real fear. And until you live it, it is so difficult to understand it. So please, stop telling us what we should have done. The culture has to change.
Mia.
Unmuted.
So, with this, he is absolutely right. We have to change that culture. That officer was at a Trump rally, front and center with the president. After many rallies, he said, rough them up. Don't care about them. Doesn't matter if you're Asian American, African American, Latino, or even LGBT like me. These police will come after us and discriminate against us because they're empowered by the president. We need to remove that president. We need to make sure that the leaders in our local and state offices understand the policies and know where our people go if they're going to attend political rallies that incite and enrage racist behavior. And find a way to teach them, train them, teach them about diversity. I was in the military for 20 years. In the Navy, we taught diversity every quarter. Went to the Army, it was like once a year. We need to make sure that everybody, from the time that they are reared through our schools and with the parents and their employers, that diversity is front and center so that we treat people like an actual adult. That's what we have to do.
Thank you. Ron.
Thank you. This is a tough one. First of all, one of the things I could say, this is just another example how white people get away with reprehensible behavior without punishment. Well, far less would have a black man in America killed. It is imperative that we continue to speak up against injustice, fight back, and demand justice for all. As Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So what we need to do is lead by example. If we oppose this sort of behavior, we oppose it, and that's how we change. And I will also add, and it's not pandering, but after listening to Devin, we need to get Devin Pandy elected. That's how you change. I can empathize with minorities. My wife is Puerto Rican, but I can never have lived those experiences. So encouraging, we're a very diverse country. Our representation doesn't necessarily reflect that. So keep encouraging people like us to keep doing what we're doing.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, this is. First off, I just want to thank Devin for sharing because I've worked with a lot of different people over the years, and I know some people have a totally different opinion of how things work in our society. And me, being a white male living in a predominantly white district, has never ever experienced the things that Devin has. It doesn't mean I don't understand that they're occurring. I've never truly experienced it, so I don't have the same emotional response that Devin, you have. So thank you for sharing. But I think the bigger picture really starts with the difference between individual racism and institutional racism. One of the things that's happening in Milwaukee County, which is part of my district, is racism was declared a public health crisis by the county itself, which opened up some certain avenues to start really thinking about institutional racism. And then there was an ordinance that was passed to make racial equity something that everything that's done by the county has to be done through the lens of racial equity. That is how we changed institutional racism. I think it's going to be very hard to go back and change people's minds who would have learned to become racist. One of the things we have to do, though, and especially for someone like me who's basically lived a life of white privilege, if I'm not out there fighting against institutional racism, doing something about how do we change the viewpoints of how we look at things and use that lens every day when it comes to funding, when it comes to housing, when it comes to police, fire, you name it. All the institutions that we have that are meant to serve and protect citizens, then I'm not doing what I need to do. And it's one of the reasons I'm running, and I think it's incredibly important for us to do that. So wherever you are, you have to look at it and go, all right, what do I have to do to look at institutions and change what's happening?
Thank you, Tom. And I'd just like to echo what you said, thanking Devin for what he said. And, I'd like to actually, do a follow-up on this. We've been talking about sort of the cultural shifts that need to happen, and but the point about institutional racism is that there are things that you can do from a policy perspective that can have an impact. Nothing is gonna solve that problem overnight. But if you're going to be going into United States Congress, so from a federal perspective, what policy? One policy. I mean, there's lots of threads here, but one policy that you would like to see acted or changed that could help make a dent in this sort of national problem that we have. And Devin, if it's okay, I'll start with you.
Yes, one policy I would say is definitely the decriminalization of marijuana, but not only marijuana. I believe all drugs should be decriminalized. We need to stop looking at drug dependency as a crime and start looking at it as a health issue. Now, the policies, the rules, the laws and regulations that criminalize dealing, production, movement of drugs, yes, keep those criminalized, of course. But the use of an addictive substance should not be criminalized. It should be looked at as a health issue. And I think that would go a long way in not only lowering the amount of people who remain addicted, but keeping those people who, I'm going to be blunt about this, keeping the black people who use marijuana out of prison, while the white people who use cocaine are not.
Thank you. Mia, how about you?
Well, right now we have about 400 bills sitting on Senator McConnell's desk. I think one of the strongest things that we can do for everybody in our country is restore and end these legal battles that have happened to our civil rights. Trump came into office and wanted to do a 2-for-1 rule. He wanted to make everything go back to the 1950s. And we have the opportunity now to make sure that the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, is passable and that it can be signed by a future president who supports equal rights. And then, of course, another policy would be to make sure that we have that diversity training I previously talked about, and make sure that everybody has, like the military does, zero tolerance for this hate harassment. It's going to make a difference when we actually are part of the legislative body to make this change on a national level.
Okay, thank you. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, one of the things I think that we need to do first in regards to this would be to look at our budget through the lens of racial equity. Actually go through each line item and say, okay, how are we actually investing our money? Where are we investing it? In the military, in social spending, wherever it is. But are we doing it in a way that is fair and just across our society? Because that's, to me, that's where Congress starts, and that's where programs get initiated and implemented, is in that budget. So to me, that would be the first place to go for that.
Thank you. Rob?
Thank you. As with anything that's a complex issue, I don't think there is a single issue that you could target that would fix it. But if I'm going to kind of agree with Devin here on criminal justice reform, would be what we want to look at in our district. And my district is 25% minority, and in the big cities, it's obviously a higher percentage, and you get out the rural areas and a lot of white agriculture farmers. But criminal justice reform affects us all. I was discussing with my campaign manager, and this is one I probably wasn't going to share, but I'm going to now. When I was young, I was arrested for having a joint on a beach, and they basically fingerprinted me and sent me on my way. And in my own district, we're following of a case where a young black man, has spent, I think it's 5 years already, in jail. His life completely changed by, a youthful infraction. So the criminalization of cannabis is one of the great social injustices of our time. I agree with Devin on that, and that's always been a keystone. But we have to do it from a viewpoint of criminal justice reform that includes amnesty for existing nonviolent offenses and all of the social implications thereof. We have to do it intelligently. We have to stop criminalizing teenagers for experimentation, and it is a health problem, especially when you look at it with the opioid crisis, which is a huge problem here in rural Louisiana. And in fact, one of our other congressmen isn't running again this year because, it turns out his pharmacy is providing 10 times the national average of opiates to constituents, so he's going to go back to the private sector. But yeah, there's a lot of things that criminal justice reform really needs to be looked at from a social angle.
All right, thank you. Cindy, how about you?
Yeah, so Tom actually took my initial response, and I think that's part and parcel because we have similar backgrounds in organization development. So we were looking at, putting the equity lens on budgeting and evaluation and things like that. That also speaks to my metrics background. But I want to take this a step further and think about how it is that we administer government programs and what is going to make for people to have a bit more of social mobility. Particularly, I'm thinking around housing choice and things like that. And I think instituting programs such as universal basic income will make that a little bit easier. Because a lot of times we see communities that are still segregated, and they're segregated because of historical redlining. And they then fall into poverty cycles in those areas, and they have little means to get out because those areas also don't have good jobs, they don't have good schools. And, probably places like Fort Myers, one of our areas that happens to have the highest African American population, 50% of the girls who have been born there since 1980s have become teen mothers. So that is just a trap for poverty. And one way that we can do that is, again, taking the equity lens, but making sure that we have social support programs. And I think universal basic income is the next step that we need to take, make sure that we can have more social mobility and reduce poverty in this country.
Thank you. So I'm just doing a time check. Where obviously we went over the first one, so we'll go over with yours too. But I'll make it equally over. I think we could do one more out here, and I'd like to go to the last question that I asked the last group. with depression era unemployment levels right now, continuing concerns about the pandemic, we're heading into a bumpy economic recovery. Next Congress will likely have the opportunity to shape additional stimulus or recovery packages. So what do you think needs to be included in these bills or in standalone bills to help your constituents and businesses get back on their feet? I'm talking specifically about more the economic recovery side rather than necessarily the health or pandemic response side. And why don't we start with Tom?
I think one of the main things that we really need to think about, I'm a small business owner and I actually work with other small business owners. There's a lot of small business owners that didn't participate in the PPP program, weren't able to get any other kind of funding. I think the restaurant and hospitality industry, the entertainment industry, those are industries that are going to be in dire need of some kind of help. And I don't know if we can wait till January to do that. I think something needs to happen sooner than that. But I think small business, at least to me, is one of those keys because that's really the linchpin of communities in our society is those small businesses. There's thousands of them. I know just in Southeast Wisconsin here, there's like 38,000 of them. And they all need some kind of help. They need guidance on how to open. They need guidance on how to be able to handle their customers. What do they do if one of their employees does get the virus? And there just doesn't seem to be a lot of overreaching help for these businesses. And in order for us to reopen safely and have a society that's moving forward again, that to me is one of the places that we need to start.
All right, thanks. Cindy, how about you?
Yes, so I think, again, I am a small business owner. I'm a community development specialist. I think that infusion of cash to small businesses, startups, and continuation is going to be a very key part of it. 91% of our businesses in Southwest Florida are small businesses, micro businesses, in fact, 20 or less full-time employees. They absolutely need support. We also have, tourism, arts, and hospitality. And I think, though, that rather than supporting those industries specifically, that we need to think about how we are going to diversify our economy, specifically using small businesses. So how are we going to continue to leverage investment for innovative small businesses to develop in our community? Because that is the only way that I think we are ultimately going to become more sustainable. I want to go a step further with what I think we should do in the next Recovery Act as far as economics goes, and that is to look at infrastructure development projects. It's been a long time. Fiscal stimulus policy that's been successful around the world. It was successful after the Great Recession. And frankly, our bridges are falling apart. Our roads are often very terribly designed. They are not complete streets. They are not multimodal. And we also have a disinvestment in public transportation options. And they're going to need additional considerations now, given the pandemic. But that is where I would like to see some additional energy around in the next Recovery Act, because that is what we're going to need, able to get some of the folks who are going to be essentially permanently displaced by the economic crisis here, something to do in the meantime while they're going on to the next part of their career. Like I said, it's been used around the world as a really successful fiscal stimulus policy, and I think that we need to do it, and then we need to make that continued investment in the United States for our infrastructure, because our entire economy moving forward relies on it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and certainly historically the construction industry itself is hit very hard after an economic recession starts, and so you're sort of doing a double service there by offering opportunities to new workers, but also just retaining the workers that you have. All right, thank you. About
Yes, I'm gonna have to go ahead and just say ditto on what Tom and Nick said. That was perfect. We are all in rural areas, and so when it comes to economy, where there's a lot of similarities, And so definitely my top three, I know you didn't want to hear about healthcare, so I won't talk about that one, but that is one of my top three. But the other two are education and and infrastructure. It's very important. We're feeling it right now in District 9, where our infrastructure, specifically broadband internet, is less than adequate. I don't even know how to explain. I don't know what word to use to explain just how inadequate it is. And so not only ensuring that our broadband is provided to all over the district, and not only ensuring that it is high speed, and not only ensuring that we have more than one service provider, but it needs to be offered as a utility. It needs to be looked at just as importantly as your gas, water, and electric. It is a necessity now. There are people who could be working at home, don't have good enough broadband to do so. So that's definitely something that I would want to look at.
Thank you. Yeah, the coronavirus has definitely further exposed the digital divide in this country, and the huge importance of access to digital technology and internet. Mia.
So I think we can actually use technology. We can use the SBA. We can use the unemployment work centers that are out there and the temporary labor forces that are in each state, city, or county, and create a federal jobs program so that you have the opportunity to just apply online, get your background check done, get everything else done, and then go to work next day. I think that would be revolutionary for anybody that is out there who is struggling to make an income because they were laid off or fired, and they're spending work weeks of hours applying, interviewing, and getting nowhere after being cut in this pandemic. So we need a new federal program to actually give people a job once they fill out all their information, and give them an opportunity. No matter if it's temporary labor, a fisherman, it will help reduce some of the work visas that we actually have here, or bring more people in that actually need that type of job. It'll be helpful, even in our rural areas, to get people to stay in our rural areas by giving them a job that is next door to them.
Thank you. All right, Rob, you get to close us out here.
It's almost like we're all running, on the same party, because a lot of us are saying the same things, and we're all looking at the same things. That you can't go wrong when you invest in your people. If you want to talk about recovery, as I believe it was Cindy who pointed out after the last recession, the infrastructure investment that was necessary to kind of help bring us out of it, and also going back to the Great Depression and FDR's rebuilding program, which actually created a lot of the infrastructure that we're still sitting on to this day, that we haven't invested back in ourselves. In our own district, we have LUS Fiber, which actually is one of the best programs in the world at a publicly owned utility company. It's a service, and it provides amazing internet. It shows that a partnership can happen between government and a private entity to help provide a utility. And of course, local Republicans are trying to privatize it, take it away because it works too well. But it's an example for the rest of the country and the rest of our district. It's only in Lafayette. So yeah, investing in the people is the way to go. Infrastructure, healthcare, education, those have been the pillars of my platform since I started. Nothing would waver. Obviously, it just becomes more imperative after a pandemic. People were poor before this, and this hasn't helped.
All right, thank you. Mia, I was told that you might be able to take us out with just a note about No Dems Left Behind, and how people can find out more information about that.
As you can see on the bottom part of your screen here is NoDemLeftBehind.com. We're a coalition of all these rural Democrats trying to make these red districts turn blue. As you see Cindy, she's saying, hey, send us the money on Act Blue. Our normal average donation is under $25, but as we get into our primaries and into our general elections, we know you're suffering. And we know that $5 is a lot to ask sometimes, but it makes a huge difference so that we can take this entire nation and make us all blue, because we want you to vote blue for you. So join us. You can volunteer from anywhere, anytime, to support our coalition at NoDemLeftBehind.com.
Perfect. All right, thank you everybody so much. It was a pleasure talking with you. Best of luck in your races, and I'll see you out there in the social media sphere.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, DemCast. Thank you.
Bye.
Hashtag DemCast.
Thank you.
Well, as you have seen, we have made all of those wonderful candidates along with Nick join us, and it's been an amazing night as you got to hear all of us talk about the important issues from West Virginia, Florida, Louisiana, and of course I think it was Utah. But hey, it's about you. It makes a huge difference when you actually turn up and support us as a coalition. So without you, we wouldn't be here, and this is why we continue to live and fight for you. No matter if it's your education, your infrastructure, your environment, or your health care. We don't need to end up going to work with our Republicans who put our safety in jeopardy, as what happened in Pennsylvania. We can do better. We need that transparency. We have the technology, and we can teach and educate people to do the same things that we do, so that our future generations can grow up and be candidates and political figures like we will become. So join us at NoDemLeftBehind.com and have a wonderful night. I'm Ian Mason. I'm running for Congress. Our voters are at the helm in 2020 because our education has failed us. Our infrastructure has failed us. With your driving force, we can fix that, especially in our healthcare, because your vote actually matters and you have the choice in 2020. I'm Ian Mason, and I approve this message.